All right, so by having the vector line work, we have a lot of the hard work done. We know that our image is going to communicate what we wanted. Now we're just using color to really bring it out. And especially, we always start with flat color, no matter how complicated your coloring is going to end up at the end. Because flat color gives us our basic color palette and our color script for any kind of special effects we'll add. So you'll see even my color comp, my little marker sketch, has different values. It has a light source kind of hitting everything. It really helps with the feet and with the Ritz crackers. But before I can get to that, I just need to clean up or just put in like a cheap coloring job, just a flat coloring job for everything. Like the gold that's the hammer and sickle are. And if I only pick from the palette that's given to me in Photoshop, things can get really, really saturated and really gaudy. So I like to often do a color test with just colored pencil or markers, and then steal colors directly from that, or from other files that I think have something to offer. Now the other thing to keep in mind is this background could be any color you want. For instance, often when I'm doing illustrations, spot illustrations, I'll fill the background with middle gray, 50% gray. Because sometimes we'll color outside of the lines, and we have to realize that when we want to color in white, that's also a choice. And when we color outside the lines, I just want to cut underneath the line work and erase on the flat color layer. And I'll usually lock my background just like I lock the line work, so that I can't accidentally paint on it. But you see his eyes filled in with gray, that doesn't make as much sense, or with skin tone, so I'm going to paint those in with white. And again, this is where a tablet is just really helpful, so I don't have to constantly change the brush size. Though if you want a quick way to change the brush size, just holding down the right click button will take you to your size options, and you can change it right there on the fly. Or just holding down Control and clicking will get you there too, if you don't want to right click, or you can't with your stylus. And then of course holding down Option gives you the color selector. So really, once you're on the brush tool, you don't have to do much else. Now Putin's eyes are this really, really bright blue. So I want to make sure I get that in. But I want it to be pale as well. So when you want to modify your color, just select on that color option and you'll get this big color window. And the closer you get to the top, the more saturated it is. You add white here, you go to the pure saturated color here, you add black on this axis, and you change the hue here. So I want these kind of intense pale blue eyes. And as a flat color, maybe I would choose that. Now for his hair, just a flat gray will serve for now. Some people like to fill in flat colors with the selection tool. And you can do that. So you can just draw a selection within your black lines. It's kind of like doing it in Illustrator. And then just fill that selection with the color. Right. So all of these methods work. We're just building up a flat color layer. I will definitely usually use the selections to erase rather than using the eraser tool, because the eraser tool can often leave little traces behind. And remember your navigation shortcuts for zooming in and zooming out. And I'll often have multiple backgrounds, so a white background, a gray background, and sometimes a black background as we get closer to the end. Because if it works on all three of those backgrounds, then it's going to work on on any number of t-shirt designs or t-shirt colors. So I'll build all those in, lock them all, and just turn them on and off, seeing how these colors work. Notice also when you have a white background, all the colors look really dark that you use, but it's all relative. So don't worry too much about that. All right, now the Ritz crackers. Again, I can steal the color directly from my color comp. And here's another way you can do it with a big stack like this. I can just outline around the shape I want to fill in, even if I'm doing it roughly. And then just use the paint bucket to fill the rest. But you want to outline it first, because if there's any opening in it, when you select it, it will also select the outside. Now, because it's digital, we always feel like it has to be perfect. But if you actually take a magnifying glass to anything that's professionally done, professionally printed, there's no shortage of flaws. And that's because everything takes time. So for instance, when you outline and then you use the paint bucket tool without the right settings, you'll get this little line here, which is just the buffer pixels between the two. You'll notice I go outside of my lines a little bit there. And just don't worry about it until you're finishing it off forever, completely. So I'm not printing the job yet, I'm just working on it. And I'm just filling in the flat colors. And so little things happen because of speed, and that's fine. You find the most productive ways. Now, to get rid of that little halo, you can simply use the paint bucket tool again. But careful not to accidentally click somewhere you're not supposed to click. And that's why you have your history as well, for going back on mistakes. Now this looks self-contained, so again, how do I do that? I go up to my line work layer, I use the magic wand with contiguous, and then I go back to my flat color layer, and I can fill it in. And we're almost done with our flat color, and that's what I hope to do with this demo. Introduce the next stage of coloring, which is duotone, which even the most basic illustrations now in our culture are usually duotoned. Split the flat local color into 2 tones at least. Now notice the salt crystals on the Ritz crackers. I am filling them in with the gold cracker color. If I want them to in fact be white, I need to fill them with white, because otherwise, whatever the background color is will fill in like it did for this shoe. So if I want them white, I select white and I paint that in. And because the salt crystals are a different local color than the cracker itself, that's still flat coloring. And some people would say that white and black are not flat colors at all, and so those shouldn't count for flat coloring. So even if I add a highlight to something, like I put a little white star here, in the golden sickle, they would say that's still flat coloring because white isn't in fact a color. That's up to you. I will usually add white and black to my duotone coloring, even though they don't affect the actual colors. But here I'm filling in the salt crystals, some of which are fully contained, some are not. Excuse me. All right. Now, so how to fix some of these mistakes? Again, to get rid of those little halos that you get sometimes when filling, you just use the paint bucket again. And then you can always do little spot corrections with your paintbrush. Remember, it's like stained glass, which is filling in behind the black lines. And you can hold down Command to steal your own colors. Or rather, hold down Option to steal your own colors with the paintbrush tool. All right, now the bottom boots, I want a very light color. And then I'll be done with my flat coloring. But if I want to go a little bit darker than that, maybe a little less saturated, there we go. Try it again. So when do I do things with flat color like this? And when is that the finished product? Well, if it's a very kind of rushed job, they need something with just a little bit of color right away, or an accent color right away, well then flat color is the way to go. So you see, by filling in the crystals with white, even if it's on a gray background, that white still shows through. So it's not going to win any art contests, but it definitely, the color adds something to the image. So that's flat color or local color. Now, there are a few ways that we can get this duotone. And one way that's really easy is to simply duplicate your flat color. So with Command J, make a duplicate layer. Oh, I have to deselect first. Okay, so now with Command J, I make a duplicate layer. And now I go to Image, Adjustments, Levels, and I can deepen or brighten those colors. So first I might go lighter, because what Duotone does is it splits your local flat color into a light version and a dark version. So I'll go lighter first. And now I'm simply going to use my lasso tool, and I'm going to select the shadow areas. And then hit delete. So I'm basically going to lasso around where I know there's going to be shadow. And this will give me what's called cut edge duotone, or hard edge duotone, or cell shading in animation. So if I know he casts a shadow under his chin, I simply cut that away, or under his cheekbone. And again, I can use my color comp as reference, or inside his ear here. Or under his lip. Or even to round out the top of his forehead. And at his temples. So on and so on. So this is cut edge duotone. Now it doesn't look very dramatic, but just wait.